Hi, so I want to talk about another comics passion of mine, as well as collecting classic comics. For the last couple of years, I really have a grown affinity for indie comics, small press. Do you know the guys at Comic Cons when you're going around and you're looking at the stacks, or you're waiting to see the next film star that you want an autograph from? You know the guys in the artist alley that 9 times out of 10 you saunter past without ever looking at their stuff. Indie comics over the last 2 years, I would say, have brought me more enjoyment than the entire Marvel output that I've read. Secret Wars this, or whatever the hell the other that Marvel are putting out at the minute. To enjoy the average Marvel comic, you need to read maybe 20 other comics to get the full story. Same with DC. I have recently reread the brilliant Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo run of Batman in trade form. Even though I've read all of the trades, I'm still missing half the story because it's spread across 14 other books in the DC catalogue. And sometimes when you're reading comics, that's not what you want. You just want an instant fix. You want to go in, you want to read something, you want to enjoy it. And that's exactly what indie comics do. Some of the ones I'm going to talk about today, I received an awful lot of these as review copies. I have a blog, it's otherwordsthanthese.co.uk, where if watching me talk about comics isn't boring into a coma, if you want to go and read about me writing badly around comics, that's the place to go. But I received review copies of the majority of these, and I went ahead and I bought them anyway because I enjoyed them that much in digital form that I wanted the physical copies. So I'm going to take a look at some of the ones that I've read that are available online. Doesn't matter if you're in the States, doesn't matter if in the UK, Northern Ireland. You can pick these up either online or you can order them on mail order. And give some of these a go for the price that you're paying. As I say, I've enjoyed these books more than I've enjoyed Marvel's entire output of the last year. I'm going to start off with a guy called Matt Garvey. And Matt Garvey's from the mainland UK. And he has 2 lines of comics available at the moment. I first encountered Matt Garvey about 2 years ago via Kickstarter. He had a Kickstarter for, let's go with that one first, his first ever produced comic book called Chunks. And Chunks is a story of a punk rock band who are in the States and they're touring. I don't like punk rock overly. It wouldn't have been my first stop off for a comic if I just browsed it. But the artwork in this, which is by a guy called Chris Canfella, was what caught my eye. I'll put some other images on at the end so you can see this, but absolutely beautifully drawn comic. Great grey tone use and splatterings of slight colour now and again. So I decided to give it a go, and I was blown away by it. Matt Garvey's a very, very clever writer. Very funny as well. Sometimes a comic doesn't have to be War and Peace. DC Convergence, where 40 million storylines are crossed over. Well, who cares, right? Like I said before, you just want to sit down, you want to read a comic, and you want to be entertained. Chunks does this for me. Laugh out loud funny, toilet humour, childish in places, but absolute great read. Okay. There's also the second issue of Chunks available. This great tribute to Nirvana cover. And this time the band have moved to LA, and they're chasing a record deal. Do they get it? I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to read it and see. But again, very, very clever, funny writing from Matt Garvey. His website is mattgarvey.co.uk. Check it out. I'll put all these details on at the end, but this is Chunks, and it's well worth a read. Better than Chunks. Honestly, a really great comic book is The Adventures of Cordelia Swift, Run and Hide. This is by Matt Garvey and a guy called Alexander Bozic on art. Again, just going to take a quick look and open up. Some beautiful artwork in this. That's the thing about indie comics. Some of them don't do themselves any favours. Some are terrible, I'll give you that. But this It's absolutely beautiful. Really, really well drawn. It's set in 1856 London. An American detective called Cordelia Swift has been forced to come to the UK because she did a deal to free her brother from prison. Nobody wants a female detective in 1856 London, as I'm sure you can imagine. The Americans didn't want her, so they've offloaded her to England. What's really good about this is it's a fantastic, strong female character. There's no lycra, there's no boobs bursting out of tops. Just well written female character. It's a great police procedural detective comic. It has little hints of steampunk, mentions of airships, people have robotic arms. Very, very, very good book. Available from Matt Garvey's website. He is going to be doing some columns around the UK, so if you do see him, pick this up. Cordelia Swift, Run Hide, Part 1 and 2. Well worth some time and money. Next, going to have a look at a book that's produced by my local comic book store, Comicbook Guys in Spires Mall in Belfast. And this is a book called The Remnant. And it is a zombie comic. And it is written by, I'm just going to give down the list here. We've got father and two sons team of Daniel Austin and Aaron Flanagan. They're the authors on this. Art is by a Belfast artist called John McFarlane, and some colours by Tara O'Connor. This is a great little comic book. If you know the comic book store, it works on one level. And lots of in-jokes, lots of references to stuff in the shop and how the guys are. But if you've never been in comic book guys in your life, it doesn't matter. This is a well-drawn, fantastically written comic book. Okay, again, small press, the guys did it themselves. The thing is, it looks like a real comic. This cover is by John McCrae from Hitman DC fame. And it's an absolute great read. It's available from their store, available online. I'll give you details for this one as well. But if you're just looking for a quick zombie fix and zombies are your thing, this is one of the best zombie comics I've read in the last 2 years. Moving on, there's a small press company in the UK called Madius Comics, and honestly, Madius are producing some of the best UK comics at the moment. That sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. I've read, I think, probably 12 comics from these guys, and their stuff is off the chart. It is really, really good. I feel embarrassed for calling it indie or small press because I forget that it still is. They do an anthology book which is called Paper Cuts and Ink Stains. I think we're up to, there must be, I think, coming on with the 5th edition of this anthology. And what this is, taking the small burst of comics and just enjoying them, takes it to another level. All individual short stories, all written by Rob Jones and Mike Sandbrook, with different indie artists popping up from time to time. Look at this cover. This is by a Belfast artist called Jim Lavery. Family portrait, and that's each of the short stories coming characters are all featured in that. Just try and give you some examples of the art in this. Really great series, runs through most of the Paper Cuts and Instincts, called Prophets of Doom, about the world's worst devil worshippers. And it's the only recurring story. This comes up more than once. What really excels in Paper Cuts and Ink Stains is the simple fact that Rob Jones and Mike Sandbrook are brilliant comic authors, and it's not going to be long before you see these guys, along with Matt Garvey as well. You're going to see these guys' names pop up in mainstream comics. I have absolutely zero doubt of it. But some other examples, there's more Paper Cuts and Ink Stains. These books are really highly produced, by the way, from Madius Comics. They're just like comics you pick off the shelf. They spend a fortune in their production, and it really, really is worthwhile. And they cover all sorts of different things. We've got with Fantasy with the King's League, Nick Gonzo's 50 Signal, which is a great little atmospheric space story. Stuff for a younger audience, but I love this as well. It's drawn by a guy called Druvis, and this is Ramlock Investigates. And the world's greatest detective was busy, and basically it's a good detective. Yeah, it's fun, great to read. This one, though, however, also by Mike Sandberg and Rob Jones, was a real treat for me. Tragic Tales of Horror. If you're a horror fan, get your hands on this. Some art in this from, let me just see, we've got Garth Slightholm, Neil Ford, Al McLaughlin and Alistair Wood. And honestly, this was one of the best comics I read in the last 12 months. Horror comics wouldn't normally be my thing, but horror is an absolute treat. Get hold of this if you can. Again, all the details are coming up. I'll put them all for you at websites, how you get hold of these things. But the whole point of this video is that if I hadn't bothered grabbing some of these, or if I hadn't stopped to talk to people at cons, if I just walked past and ignored these guys who are out there trying to flog their wares. These guys put their heart and soul into these books, and it's obvious when you read it. Matt Garvey, for example, the Kickstarter failed, and for 2 years Matt Garvey has worked his ass off to get his comics produced. He pays his artists. All the guys here mentioned pay their artists. That in comics is a rare thing. Without art, comics are just books. So art is a huge side of comics for me. These guys all respect their artists and pay them. So give them a shot. If you see Madius Comics, if you see Matt Garvey, or you fancy a zombie read and you want to give the Revenants a go, do it. Guarantee there'll be something in indie comics that you get a buzz from and enjoy. And just for a change, break away from the big three. Don't go for an Image book, don't go for DC, or don't go for Marvel Comics. Try something new and see what you think. Thank you.